Hey everyone, welcome to the Primetime Preview on ID Sports Radio, your direct feed for all of the sports. I'm Josh Rick, your host today, and I'm joined by Luke Gray, and everything you're going to keep your eye on. What a time of the different sport. We have a busy weekend as the NFL wraps up the preseason play and gets ready for the dreaded cutdown day coming early next week. Also, college football is back, and we have this weekend with a few interesting matchups, so we'll run that down. As usual, we have our top 5 Major League Baseball series of the weekend. Which one would be number 1? And key matchups in the WNBA, Women's Soccer League, and the MLS as well. Also, the Premier League is back in full swing, and we'll look at the matchups this weekend. The Little League Series is back this weekend, and then for the first period, I will look at the Gates Road. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, tennis is just getting heated up with the U.S. Open coming, and we'll give you our picks for the men's and women's finals. Then we'll wrap it up with some auto sports as we head towards their playoffs. They're getting towards the end of their season. So sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and find out what you need to watch this week. Also, if you haven't subscribed to IE Sports Radio, what are you doing? Hit the subscribe and the like button. IE Sports Radio is your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's get this party started after a word from our major partner.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Hey, what's good, everyone? Welcome to the Primetime Preview. I'm Josh Ritter, and for the first time, I'm hosting this show. I will be taking it over on a full-time basis in 2 weeks, but for the next 2 weeks, you get to see both Ricky and myself. So I'd like to welcome in my co-host today, Ricky K. Ricky K's been around for a while in the Primetime Preview, but welcome, Ricky.
Thank you for having me, Josh. Happy to be aboard. Excited to see you be the pilot today, and I think we're going to have some fun.
Absolutely. It's a great time of the year to be talking sports. You got a lot of sports winding down towards their playoff races while the NFL is winding up. And it's a great time of the year to be watching a lot of sports. So let's get right into it. Before we do, why don't you tell them where they can find you in the IE Sports Radio world?
Absolutely. So you can follow me on X at Rickinator555. That's at RECK, letter I, Nader, like Terminator, and 3 5s. Also do some work with the Bullpen Bulletin every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern on IE Sports Radio as we get ready for September call-ups. Baseball season is only like less than 40 games left, so it should be so much fun. Also, also follow me on the New York IE Sports Radio account as well. Joey Jets doing some good stuff over there. You'll catch me doing some Liberty stuff, some Mets and Yankee stuff, and all that fun stuff. And remember, like Josh said earlier, follow us on X, TikTok, YouTube at IE Sports Radio. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, have some fun. And Josh is doing some awesome things on TikTok. You can also find this show on TikTok as well, as we have been doing some awesome clips from each show throughout the week as we expand our Instagram and TikTok reels here at the network.
Absolutely. And you can find me on TikTok at josh.ritter57, building the following out there. And it's cool to be able to blast IE Sports Radio out to the masses out there. Also, you can find me at joshritter13 on X. I'm covering the Dolphins, the Phoenix Suns, the Toronto Blue Jays as they head towards the playoffs. And, the Oregon Ducks, you'll start seeing some Oregon Ducks content from me soon as we get college football going. And we'll talk more about that as we come up. So let's go ahead and get kick-started here. We're going to start, as we always do, with the NFL. This is the last week of preseason. The NFL is going to be sunsetting the preseason and getting down to business here. I believe Tuesday is the cut-down day where rosters have to go from 90 down to 53. So a lot of guys have jobs on the line this weekend. It's really important for those fringe guys on the edge of the roster. This is the last chance to sort of prove themselves to the coaching staffs before those cut-down days. So lots to see this weekend. We'll run down through all the games really quick here, and then we'll get our thoughts on a couple games each and see where it goes. So we actually have 4 games tonight. They start in about an hour and a half. We have the Eagles playing at the Jets. We have the Falcons playing at the Cowboys. We have the Vikings playing at the Titans, and the Bears playing at the Chiefs. And then tomorrow we got a bunch of games. We got the Ravens at the Commanders, the Colts at the Bengals, the Rams at the Browns, the Texans at the Lions, the Broncos at the Saints, the Seahawks at the Packers, the Jaguars at my Dolphins, the Bills at the Buccaneers, the Chargers at the 49ers, and the Raiders at the Cardinals. So, Ricky, why don't you go ahead and tell us about a couple of those matchups that you find interesting this weekend and why?
So before I get into that, I was actually at the game last night at MetLife, seeing the Patriots and the Giants. I wish the Patriots actually played some people because Ben Woolridge playing quarterback, and he got cut today. So it was basically the guy playing 40 snaps, and then that was it. But Jackson Dart looked really good. He had a couple of nice throws, had a good run. Eventually, he had to leave the game with a concussion. But, he was evaluated for concussion, but cleared protocol, which is great news. Jameis Winston had a touchdown, but Tommy DeVito looked really good. I'm wondering if Tommy DeVito is going to get – if the Giants decide to not carry 4 quarterbacks, he could get claimed and be a backup somewhere. Like, he's not bad compared to some of these quarterbacks in the league. He was 17 of 20 with, 3 touchdowns in the second half, which was very impressive. So, it was really – Giants did some good things last night. Patriots, not so much, but again, they didn't really play anybody. But that was a fun experience last night. Speaking of the games this weekend, I'm concerned about one team in particular. And it's not the team you're thinking. I'm concerned about the Falcons. Like, what are the Falcons doing not playing Michael Penix Jr. and not playing Kirk Cousins in the preseason? You got to get – I know Penix, it's his second year in the league. I get you don't play your starter quarterback a lot in the preseason. Like for the Bills, Josh Allen isn't playing in the preseason for the first time ever. But Penix is a second-year player. He still has to get some reps. He only started half the season last year. So it's like he was a full-time quarterback right from day one. You got to get some reps somewhere. The joint practices, I don't know if they do that much for you. And Kirk Cousins, wouldn't the Falcons try to like throw him out there, play well, and somebody would trade for him? Like, I don't get what's the benefit for the Falcons to play Easton Stick at quarterback the whole preseason. To me, I just don't understand that strategy. So I guess it'll be Atlanta, Dallas is one, just because that's weird because you've got the Falcons not playing quarterbacks versus Jerry Jones not paying Micah Parsons. So either one, it's a weird dynamic of Falcons Cowboys. The other one, I'm going to go with Rams Browns, just because I think with Cleveland, I know Flacco is named the quarterback, but I haven't seen if we will see Shador or if we see more Dylan Gabriel or we see any type of quarterback play from Cleveland, how that shakes out, who's the backup. And for the Rams, what's the deal with Matthew Stafford? He's not going to play, but maybe that some more reps for Stetson Bennett, or do the Rams maybe see that maybe they can go get a quarterback on the waiver wire to kind of be the backup for Stafford if Bennett doesn't really have a great preseason game. So keep an eye, I think, on Rams, Browns, and Falcons, Cowboys.
I really like your comment about the Falcons. That is very strange. If you have a quarterback that's been around for 10 years, whatever it is, or super veteran, you can understand not putting him out there and putting him in harm's way. But for a second-year player who's at best unproven, you need those reps, and you need to see that he's ready for the regular season. The Falcons have aspirations to win a title this year, or not title, but a division title maybe this year, and they should be getting him as ready as possible. So I'm totally with you on that. For me, a couple games that stand out. Obviously, I'm going to talk about my Dolphins, but for a couple of reasons. This is how these preseason games go now. It used to be that there was a flow to preseason. You had 4 games, and usually the third game was the game where teams played basically a half of their starters and then kind of nothing after that. And the fourth game, last game, nobody played except for the backups. Well, now you have teams that have different strategies with 3 games, and then we're 2 weeks out from the regular season. So you have time now, whereas we used to have 1 week between them. So you see this game, the Dolphins are playing their starters all the way to halftime today or tomorrow. And the Jaguars are, from what I'm hearing, playing nobody. And it's similar to what you said last night with the Patriots. They went out there with nobody at all, and they got kind of run the first half. So for me, as a Dolphins fan, the Dolphins better jump on the Jaguars tomorrow, because if we're going to be playing our starters and they're not playing their starters, I need to see get your starters some good reps, get in the end zone a couple times, stop them, get a big lead, and then get them out. So that'll be interesting to see, can they actually take advantage of the fact that our ones are probably going to be going against their twos. And then the other game for me is the Bills at the Buccaneers. I'm curious to see how Buffalo responds to a 38-0 drubbing last week. I know it's preseason, but this is a team with title aspirations, and it makes you wonder how deep is Buffalo when they went out there and got run by the Bears, and it was not close. So I know they didn't play their starters, but you want to see your team rebound from getting beat 38-0. And conversely, the Bucs have had a great preseason. They're 2-0. They've been pretty dominant in their wins. So just to see the different dynamics of a team that maybe is filling themselves a little bit versus a team that kind of got embarrassed even for a preseason game. How do both teams respond to that? Are they going to play starters? I know Josh Allen definitely won't play, and that's totally fair. Like, he does not need to be out there. But but Buffalo needs to show some heart there and at least make a good showing. So curious about that game. Definitely. All right. So let's move on to college football. College football is beginning. It is technically week 0. A new thing that college football has been doing the past several years is giving us a little bit of a teaser before we get into the big, all of the game matchups with all the top 25 teams. And something that's really cool is they've been doing this Aer Lingus Classic, where it's two teams in Dublin, Ireland, playing against each other. And this year they have a good matchup. The matchup is number 22 Iowa State versus number 17 Kansas State. And quite frankly, for an August game, this has potential Big 12 title game implications. These are two teams in the same conference that have played each other 109 consecutive seasons. So they know each other really, really well. And to play on a neutral site and to have it so early in the season is super interesting, and it adds appeal to the game because it's more than just two non-conference opponents kind of going up there and seeing what they got. Like, this game matters. So I'm really excited to see it. And an interesting fact about this matchup, like I said, they played 109 consecutive times, but because of the new NCAA rules around conferences and how these conferences have gotten so big, this next season, when they play their 110th time consecutively, that will break that streak the year after, because they're not scheduled to play in 2027. So for two teams that have played each other for over a century against each other every single year, that will eventually come to the end. Any thoughts on that game?
So I love this matchup. And like you said, it's two ranked teams. Both these teams, the winner of this game really could be a dark horse college football playoff contender, because looking at Kansas State's schedule, they only play one ranked team the rest of the way, and that's Texas Tech. Iowa State's got a little bit of a tougher schedule, but not too much. And the Big 12 has kind of been watered down slightly with Oklahoma and Texas out of the conference. I think this is a fun one because you got two veteran quarterbacks, Rocco Becht and Avery Johnson. And the question I have about Iowa State, remember, they lost a lot of their receiving talent to the NFL. Becht's lost his top two guys, and Iowa State has had to rebuild both receivers and offensive line because Will Campbell's not there anymore. So I think that's a big thing to me, is like, how does Iowa State's offense adjust to losing all of those guys? And for Kansas State, to me, it's about the running attack. Kansas State is a really good rushing attack led by Dylan Edwards, who had 196 yards and 2 touchdowns in the bowl game against Rutgers last year. Of course, CJ Giddens now in the NFL. How does Sanders take over the high workload? But I tend to lean toward Kansas State in this game, but we've seen craziness in Dublin before. Last year, Georgia Tech upset Florida State. I don't really know if Iowa State upsetting Kansas would be an upset over K-State. I think K-State favored by like 3. So I don't really know if this is an upset, but I kind of like Kansas State. I kind of don't like conference games in Ireland. I think I'd rather see like a cool non-conference game. But nevertheless, it's good for week 0 to have a ranked versus ranked field, so it's not like, oh, we're just putting teams together to start the year.
Yeah, and I actually kind of want to lean towards Iowa State, only because I know that there's been upsets over there in Dublin in the past, and it would be interesting to see that game. Sometimes there's a competition gap this early in the season, and kind of a motivation gap. Obviously, with it being a conference game and a top 25 matchup, hopefully that doesn't happen. But you see sometimes where one team comes out and they're ready, and the other maybe isn't. So really curious about that matchup. So, yep. Then we have 4 more games in week 0. You have Idaho State at UNLV. You have Fresno State at Kansas. Sam Houston State at Western Kentucky. And then a sneaky interesting game, Stanford at Hawaii. Stanford is not predicted to do terribly well in the ACC. And it'd be interesting to see if Hawaii can upset them as kind of like one of the more mid-major teams. They can upset them in Hawaii.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you look at Stanford, like you said, picked last in the ACC. How does Frank Reich do? That Stanford program went through a lot, losing David Shaw, and then Andrew Luck be involved in a lot of decision making now. They brought in Ben Goldbridson to start a transfer from Oregon State, but Goldbridson's okay. 15 touchdowns and 10 picks in 18 games. They've got a bunch of new receivers. And you look at Hawaii, this is like their chance to make a statement. Last year they lost to UCLA at a last-minute field goal at home. They've got a really fun offense. Timmy Chang, of course, is the coach, and he's been famous for that air raid offense. Micah Alejado is going to be the quarterback to watch. His first start last year against New Mexico, he had 469 yards and 5 touchdowns. So they're a player that can make things happen. And looking at ESPN Bet right now, and they'll talk about it more on 3 and Out with Larry B. and Taryn tomorrow morning here on the network. Hawaii is favored by 2.5. It's rare you see Hawaii get favored in a game like this, because normally you would think, oh, Hawaii upset Stanford. it wouldn't be an upset. Hawaii just might be the better football team. I think the only reason you would pick Stanford is Stanford's got better athletes coming from the ACC against the Mountain West team, but this got a chance to have a really high octane game. It's a national game on CBS, and we'll see if Hawaii can bring it against an ACC opponent and gain some credibility.
Absolutely. That would be fascinating if Hawaii could actually be a pretty competitive team. They've had some good players in the past, but they've never been able to put it together with a team. So I'd love to see that. So that would be great. And for you football fans out there, next weekend is kind of a dead weekend for NFL. So we're going to be deep diving into some early season matchups in college football next week. So definitely tune into next week's show. All right, let's jump to baseball. We have our top 5 series of the weekend to watch. And there's 2 that are obvious. They're going to be the top 2, and we'll get to those, but not yet. We're going to start off with our number 5 series. And this is a sneaky series and one that you probably wouldn't think. You got the Cincinnati Reds at the Arizona Diamondbacks. And this one is actually might be the one with the most on the line for the 2 teams, in the sense that Cincinnati is half game out of the wild card in the NL. And Arizona is 5.5 out. So Cincinnati needs to win to jump into that wild card picture, and Arizona desperately needs to win to even stay relevant. So both of these teams are going to be super desperate, and really Arizona kind of sort of needs to sweep to have any shot to stay in the race. So there's a lot on the line for these 2 teams that haven't. Well, the D-backs have had their playoffs success recently, but the Reds haven't been in a while. As a fan of sports, I'd love to see the Reds back in the playoff picture. It's been a minute. So this series, to me, seemed more interesting than it may at first blush.
Yeah, I don't really buy into Arizona. Like you said, they've got to sweep to really get themselves in the conversation, just because, again, you sell Suarez and Naylor and Kelly, and now you tell me they're in. I think just how bad right now the rest of the NL wildcard is. Cincinnati's got an opportunity. The Mets are vulnerable. They just lost to the Nationals in the series. So this is time for Cincinnati. They got Zach Littell tonight against Nelson, Andrew Abbott against Nabel Chrismat on Saturday, and then Sunday, Brady Singer against Zach Gallen. You're only seeing Gallen in this series, but the Reds should easily be able to take 2 games, even though it's been a long West Coast trip for them, being in Los Angeles against the Angels earlier this week.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. So it should be a lot of fun to watch that series, and we'll see what happens here. Number 4, we have the Guardians against the Rangers. This is what I would call the elimination series of the weekend. So the Cleveland's 3 out of the wild card, and the Rangers are 5 out. And they are chasing Boston and New York in those standings. And, they're playing each other, which we'll get to that series. There's an opportunity, if one team can sweep, to maybe jump up and get closer to those teams, while the team that loses this series, especially if it's the Rangers, is going to find themselves in a world of hurt and probably heading into September with very little chance to get to the wild card. So both these teams are going to be highly motivated not to eliminate themselves. Did I lose you?
Well, both these teams, to me, for Cleveland and Texas, are coming in reeling. They've lost 7 of their last 10 for both of them. Texas looked a little bit off against Kansas City as the Royals. We'll get to them as they're starting to get rolling. But I feel like both these teams are still in it because the Mariners have just fallen off a cliff. Like, they've lost 5 in order to kind of put them back in this place where at least they feel like they're in contention. Texas should be a lot better than what they are. I've been kind of surprised they've kind of fallen off the map in that regard. This is a fun matchup, though. Slade Ciccone against Nathan Eovaldi tonight. Eovaldi with a 1.76 ERA. You have Allen against Jack Leiter tomorrow night. And then Sunday, you have Gavin Williams against Merrill Kelly. So I think Cleveland, if they lost this series, there's still a chance. Texas has got to win this series. If they lose this series at home, I can't take Texas seriously anymore after this.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Yeah. So it's going to be a big one for both of those teams. I would think the team that loses 2 out of 3 at the least is probably done at this point. At number 3, we've got the Royals and the Tigers. So this game is way more important for the Royals than the Tigers because the Tigers are up by almost 10 games in their division. So they're set, but they're still going to be very interested in winning this series and probably eliminating a division rival. Whereas the Royals are 2 out of the wild card and they're within striking distance of those wild card seats. So if they can find a way to win this series, which is against the big dog in their division, that would be huge for the Royals. And it'd be fun to see them make it interesting in the AL wildcard race.
Yeah, I kind of lean toward the Royals though, Josh, in this series because I kind of need to see more from the Tigers. I know both these teams are coming and playing well. Tigers have won 8 of 10. The Royals have won 8 of 10. Vinny Pasquantino has been hitting clutch home runs galore for the Royals lately. When he's got that bat going, their offense is really the one question I have at Kansas City, despite all their injuries to their pitching staff. They seem to find a way. But the reason I say Detroit's got to prove it, the Tigers against teams above 500 are 30 and 27, and their record is 23 games over. Maybe that just shows how bad a lot of these teams are in baseball. But Tigers could maybe use a series win where they have a plus 97 run differential, plus 96, while the Royals are -1. So give me Detroit to actually show up in this series. And even though they're 12.5, making kind of a statement. So your matchups, Bergert against Mize tonight on Apple TV in about 40 minutes. Tomorrow, Michael Wacha against Chris Paddock. And then Sunday, you have Seth Lugo against Jack Flaherty. So this is a golden opportunity for the Royals. You're not playing Tarek Skubal. Go into Comerica and take a couple games.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Royals can take 2 out of 3 in the series. There's definitely going to be a little bit of a motivation gap. the Royals absolutely have to win this series. So I would not be surprised to see them win 2 out of 3, even on the road. All right, so the top 2 were interesting. They were clearly the top 2 series of the weekend. We had the Dodgers and the Padres and the Red Sox and the Yankees. We had Padres-Dodgers as the number 1 series last weekend, and I almost made it the number 1 series again this weekend. But there's something about Red Sox-Yankees that is just different. So we're going to go Dodgers-Padres here at number 2. There's one game that separates these two teams, and the Dodgers kind of took it to the Padres last weekend. So can the Padres bounce back and take back that lead in the NL West?
Yeah, I'm very concerned about San Diego. I said last week, they got to have to win a series against the Dodgers for me to take you seriously. Dodgers have won 8 out of 10 against San Diego this year. They've kind of proven to be that big brother over them, especially when you go back to the last 2 games at NLDS last year when it looked like the Padres had won that series. And San Diego's pitching staff took another hit. Michael King last week being out for the rest of the season when his return was supposed to kind of spark something, and now it's not there. Padres have the bullpen, but where's this offense? They have a lot of talented players on that offense, and they really are struggling to hit the ball to the ballpark. That's a real concern against a Dodger team that once Mookie Betts finds it, when eventually they realize he probably is better off in the outfield because their outfield production isn't there. But they've got too much talent, I think, to not win this division. It's Blake Snell against Yu Darvish tonight. Tomorrow night is Tyler Glasnow and Nestor Cortez. And then Sunday is going to be Yamamoto against Nick Pivetta. Nick Pivetta going for his 14th win. Remember, he didn't sign until like spring training this year. So really good find by San Diego. Pivetta's having a career year. But I'm still not taking the Padres seriously, even if they win 2 out of 3. Dodgers have clearly shown while they may not be the favorite in the NL, they're definitely the favorite in the division.
I'm rooting for the Padres to get 2 out of 3 just so that they can exit this series tied. And I think that would be a lot of fun going into September to see these teams just knotted and who's going to take it in September. The smart money has to be on LA, like you said. They're the defending champs for a reason. They have that big payroll. They have amazing hitters, amazing pitchers. You have to give them the upper head until Padres prove they can do it. But I'd love to see it. So we'll see what happens this weekend. But the top series of the week, of course, Red Sox at Yankees. This is a 4-game series that started last night, and the Red Sox won 6-3. And that's a good start for the Red Sox. They're just a half game behind New York right now for the top wild card spot. They're both firmly in the wild card right now, but that top wild card spot is going to mean something. So there's never, it doesn't matter what the record is with these two teams. There's never a motivation gap to beat each other. But I think that the winner of these weekend games could be the only team that can really even think about catching Toronto. Toronto's in Miami this weekend, so you have to think they're going to win at least 2 of those 3 games, and Toronto's got about a 5-game lead on both. So, if you want any chance of getting to the AL East title, you got to win this series.
And I think both these teams are extremely flawed that I don't really think it matters that much. I know they're both in striking distance, but you watch last night's game, Red Sox and Yankees both stranded a lot of runners at men scoring position. The Yankees made 4 errors, and they just continue to fall flat on their face defensively, and there's just no sign they're going to correct that. You have 3 errors in 1 inning, so it seems like whenever the Yankees are on national TV, they embarrass themselves with the way they play defensively. And I read Aaron Boone today and saying, we got 35 games, our best baseball's ahead of us. You've been saying that since June. Like we get it. You have to say things to say things. But at some point, you got the Yankees against playoff teams outside of Seattle are 6-17. They've lost 6 straight to the Red Sox. 6 straight.
Yeah.
You got to prove it on the field. And it starts tonight in a huge matchup. And the reason I say that, it's Brian Bale for Boston against Max Fried. Max Fried was a Cy Young Award winner for the first 3 months of the year. He has fallen off a cliff. I don't know what happened. He got a blister against the Cubs, and ever since he's been terrible. This is a game 1 ALDS kind of start where Max Fried's got to put something up on the board just to give any kind of confidence, because both these teams make the playoffs because the American League stinks.
Yeah.
Like that's just the reality of it. But if the Yankees want to prove they can do anything in the playoffs, it's got to be because of him, period. That's tonight. Garrett Crochet against Will Warren tomorrow. So you got to think Boston has the edge there because Crochet strikes out Judge almost every time. And then Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, Dustin May against Carlos Rodon. Side note for the Red Sox, Walker Buehler, by the way, going to the bullpen. So that's why I kind of don't trust Boston, because outside of Crochet, do you trust Bayo in a big spot? Do you trust Giolito, who couldn't get out of the 5th inning last night in a big spot, even though their bullpen did a good job? Do you trust Dustin May? Because I don't really know where the Red Sox are. They're talented. Roman Anthony was great last night, but I don't really know what either of these teams are. And I don't know if the next 3 games, and even when they play at Fenway in September, are going to show us that they're right up there. I think they're both kind of evenly matched in being better than average. Yeah,
that's a fair point, and you're not going to get any argument from this Blue Jays fan on that one. They both have major flaws, and I lean towards rooting as a Blue Jays fan for the Yankees, just because I do think that down the stretch their defensive issues are going to cost them games that they shouldn't lose anyway. Boston seems a little bit more consistent in that regard, but like you said, they have some concerns with the pitching staff, and we'll just have to see what happens. But the theater of this series always feels bigger than the actual matchup itself. The fans in the stands watching this series, that's almost as fascinating as the series itself. When they pan to those stands, and every single one of those fans, it's like it's a World Series game.
Well, both these teams are relevant for the first time since the wild card game in 21. Like, that's what made this rivalry dead for the last few years, is because one team was good, one team isn't good. And I think Yankee fans in particular watch the series because the guy they don't like in the dugout managing is going up against Alex Cora, and Alex Cora can manage circles around Aaron Boone. I think, and both are best friends, but I think it's one of those things where Cora has done more with less. And while Boone has been consistently good, the Yankees don't win. And while the Red Sox are inconsistent, Alex Cora's got a championship. So it's kind of like, which one would you rather be? The team that's consistently good and never wins, or the team that gets the World Series and comes in last the next couple of years, but you'll get a title every now and then? It's really 2 contrasting styles, but this rivalry is good. I think Dodgers-Padres for right now is the best at this stage, but this rivalry, the all-time one, is great when both teams are relevant, and it's good to see that they're actually in the mix with some competitive games both now and in September at Fenway Park.
Absolutely, and as much as I hate to admit it, as these are the 2 teams I cannot stand the most, baseball's better when both of these teams are relevant. It just flat out is. So it's good. It's good for the sport, and looking forward to watching it this weekend. All right, let's turn our attention from the diamond over to the hard court. We got the WNBA. Their regular season is nearing its end. Not quite there yet, but we're getting towards the end of the season. So these matchups are going to start having a little bit more impact on the standings, and we'll see where it flushes out. So just a few games that we're going to highlight this weekend. You've got the Minnesota Lynx at the Indiana Fever. This is a rematch of the Commissioner's Cup that was won by the Fever. So that should be an interesting game. That is tonight. Also tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific is Golden State at Phoenix. And these two teams played just on Tuesday, and the Phoenix Mercury won 98-91. But that should be a really interesting matchup. Saturday, we go to New York versus Atlanta at 2 p.m. Eastern and 11 a.m. Pacific on CBS. So that's a nationally televised game. That should be very interesting. Obviously, you got New York, who they just beat Minnesota Tuesday, but then they followed it up with a loss to Chicago on Thursday. So we'll see where they land. And then Sunday, you got Indiana at Minnesota. So that's a rematch of Friday's matchup. So it just flip-flops. It's like a home and home matchup. So does anything stand out for you, Ricky?
Well, to me, I had my eye on Liberty Dream on Saturday. The Liberty, like you said, they finally beat Minnesota. Things are looking pretty good. And they lose to Chicago last night, a team already eliminated from the playoffs, and they lose at home. And I know this team is missing Brianna Stewart right now, and hopefully she'll be back toward the end of the month. They've dropped to 4th in the East, and the danger of dropping to, well, not in the East, but 4th in WNBA. And if they're in that 4 or 5, you're going to be playing the Lynx in the semifinals. I don't really know if the Liberty want to do that at this point. I know they're defending champs. I know seed shouldn't matter, but this is a fun matchup with Atlanta. Alicia Gray was the Eastern Conference Player of the Week last week. All 3 matchups this year between these two teams have been decided by single digits, so we should get a close game. Team I have my eye on also, Las Vegas. They've won 9 in a row. They've got the Mystics this weekend. The Mystics are 2 games back of the last playoff spot. The Mystics will play all 3 teams in front of them after this game. So it's put up or shut up for Washington. But Becky Hammond's Aces squad is clicking at the right time. Asia Wilson and Jackie Young and that squad have been very dominant. So that should be a fun matchup as well. And then the Minnesota-Indiana side, I just wish they were all healthy. I mean, Lisa Collier hasn't been healthy for Minnesota. Play the long game, get her healthy for the postseason. But Indiana, no Caitlin Clark. Sophie Cunningham's out for the year. They're down there, the point guards. And Indiana at this point is just trying to survive to get into the postseason. We only have about a few weeks left. And right now, when you look at the standings, the Fever are in the 6th spot, but only 2 games ahead of the Sparks, who are starting to catch fire with Kelsey Plum. So Indiana's got to be careful. Got to get at least a split against Minnesota, or their playoff hopes could be on the line.
Yeah, and it really is a bummer that both Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark are out for Indiana. That team was really starting to come together, and it's just sad that they can't be full go. But we'll see what happens. And the Aces, they kind of came out of nowhere. I remember seeing the standings about a month ago thinking, what happened to the Las Vegas Aces? They were a powerhouse in this league for a few years, and it looked awful. And all of a sudden, they're just coming back with a vengeance. So good for them that they got together. Rooting for Becky Hammond, who was the assistant coach under Pop in San Antonio, and love to see her getting the opportunity as a head coach and someone I really believe in as a coach. So good for her. All right, we're going to jump to the Premier League as the Premier League is back up and running here. And we're going to highlight a few matchups against some of the more storied franchises in the Premier League over the course of the last several decades. And we're going to start with Manchester City versus Tottenham Hotspur. It's a great matchup between 2 of the better teams in the Premier League. That'll be tomorrow morning. 4:30 a.m. Pacific time, my time. So if you're on the Pacific coast like I am, you want to watch these guys, you got to wake up early or record it. And I've been known to do that with my team, which we'll talk about in a second. But both teams had dominating wins in their opening matchups. And we'll just see who can kind of stake claim to that early season table, can get out and run with that. So that should be a fun matchup. Also on Saturday, thankfully for me, as a fan of the Arsenal, It's a time friendly matchup. We got a 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific on NBC Universal. You have Arsenal versus Leeds United, who's back up in the Premier League again. Good for them. Shout out to my colleague in Ireland, who is a fan of Leeds and was really bummed that they weren't in the Premier League last year, but they made it back up. So good for them. Arsenal is a heavy favorite, of course. Arsenal won against Man United last weekend, so their big matchup was last weekend to start, and they were able to win, which made my heart happy. But they didn't play great, so we'll see if they can really take advantage of Leeds kind of coming in towards the bottom of the table and see how that goes. On Sunday, we have Fulham versus Manchester United. Manchester United needs to bounce back from that loss to Arsenal, so we'll see if they can do that. And then I'll just sneak this in here because Liverpool is such a good team, even though it's technically not the weekend. On Monday at 3 p.m., you have Newcastle United versus Liverpool on the USA Network. So, Ricky, anything stand out to you on the Premier League this weekend?
So we also had one matchup today in Premier League. Chelsea beat West Ham United 5-1. They had goals from 5 different players. So Chelsea, after taking a draw to Crystal Palace last week, gets on the board. They didn't even have Cole Palmer, who was big in that FIFA Club World Cup run. So that was just shows you how much depth Chelsea has. I love the Man City Tottenham matchup. You had Haaland was great last week for Man City. Is he going to keep it up? Richarlison on the other side for Tottenham had 2 goals. So both these teams had dominating wins. Can they battle that? And I'm interested in what Fulham against Man U. Fulham got a draw last week against Brighton, but needed a stoppage time goal just to get a point. But Man United's got a problem in net. They're really on the decline right now. Arsenal did beat them last week, but even the Arsenal coach was like, that was not one of our better performances. So can Fulham steal a point? Something they've only done maybe once or twice in the last 5 meetings against Man City. I'm not Man City, Man United. And if Man U can't get a point here or can't get the win, that's going to lead to a lot of trouble in England about what's going on with that matchup. So I think, though, you're right. Man City Tottenham is the matchup to watch. So many stars, so much firepower. And Tottenham, remember, they played pretty well, lost in penalties in that Super Cup to PSG. Can they keep that momentum going and get a strong start to their season?
Absolutely. Yep. So that'll be fun. I love the Premier League. Every match feels so important. And, like football, they play once a week, but they play almost the entire year. So it's fun to have that extra sport kind of back on the Saturday morning that you can fill your time in before football starts. All right, let's jump to the MLS. We've got a few matchups this weekend that are going to impact playoff seedings. We got 3 matchups. The first one is FC Cincinnati versus New York City FC. This will be Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. This is 1 versus 8 in the East. So you have the top of the table versus someone that's fighting to get into that playoff spot. So as we talked about with baseball, sometimes when you play the top team plays a team that's desperate, you have that motivation gap. So we'll see whether New York City FC can pull off the win there. Then also on Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, you've got Nashville SC versus Orlando SC. This is 3 versus 4 in the East. So they're jockeying for position, trying to get themselves into a better seed towards the playoffs as we move towards that. And then San Diego FC versus Portland Timbers on Saturday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. So it's the nightcap. And that is the 1st versus the 6th in the West. So again, very similar to our first matchup. You've got the top of the table against a team that's fighting for playoff positioning, trying to stay in that playoff picture. So which series of any of those are you going to be looking at, Ricky?
So Orlando, to me, is the team on fire right now. They've won 5 in a row. They're coming off of a Leagues Cup penalty shootout win. They're going to take on Miami in the semifinals in the battle for Florida. So that should be a lot of fun. But both these teams, like you said, playing extremely well. I think NYCFC, it's going to be what Alonso Martinez does. He's got 6 goals in his last 5 games, 13 goals on the year. They beat Nashville last week, which is a little bit of a surprise at home. Remember, these two teams met in the MLS Cup playoffs last year, and NYCFC won in PKs. So Cincinnati's maybe going to have a little revenge on their mind here. The other matchup I like is Charlotte against the Red Bulls on Sunday night. And the reason is Charlotte right now, I think, is one of those teams flying under the radar. They're in the top 7. Red Bulls are tied with the Chicago Fire for the last playoff spot. This is a Red Bull team that's on a streak, one of the longer streaks in professional sports and making the postseason. They're usually one that does that. They're right now on the borderline right now with Emil Forsberg and Choupo-Moting. Can they find a way to get a point? And when you look at these last two games, Red Bulls did win 4-2, and Red Bulls have been dominant against Charlotte. 3 wins and 2 draws in the last 5 matchups between them. So can Charlotte keep that roll going? And can the Red Bulls find a way to sneak into the postseason? Should be a fun matchup with those teams separated by just 5 points.
Absolutely. So it should be a fun end of the season push for the playoffs in the MLS. Now we're going to move to the Little League World Series. The Little League World Series concludes this weekend, and we have our championships set for the United States and the internationals. So for the United States, you've got Fairfield, Connecticut versus Las Vegas, Nevada on Saturday. And it's interesting because when you look at the brackets, neither team had an early bye game. So these are not the teams that were the most favored to get here. But here we are, and really excited to see that. It's kind of an East Coast, West Coast thing. So, you know, which team you're going to root for. Las Vegas has looked really strong, though, I will say, and I've been very impressed with the bit that I've seen from that team. So from my perspective, I'm looking at the Las Vegas team as probably having the edge just from the way that they've been playing. And in the international championship game, you have Chinese Taipei versus the small country of Aruba, which actually I've been to Aruba. It is a very small country. And good for them that they've managed to make it to the final. As a fan of the underdog story, this is definitely one that I'm rooting for on Saturday for them to pull it off. Chinese Taipei has been around; they've done this type of thing before. They've always been a pretty strong team. But man, I'm curious to see what Aruba can do, and kind of surprised that the Japanese team didn't make it into the championship in the international side. So a couple interesting matchups, and the winners of those two will play each other in the Little League World Series championship on Sunday. So, Ricky, what are your thoughts on the Little League World Series?
That should be 2 pretty solid matchups. Both these teams played in their semifinals on Wednesday, so these are both rematches. So basically, the top 2 in each international in the U.S. have played each other to get to this point, and the losers of those games survive their elimination game to get back to get rematches, which is actually pretty good for both those teams. I love the Aruba story. They played well against Venezuela. That was a very competitive game. I just think Chinese Taipei right now, their pitching has just been so good. It's not the same team that got to the finals last year, but they're always right up there and competing, as you mentioned. It's going to be tough to, but again, you feel weird breaking down these matchups because it's great for all four of these teams. Yeah. I know they talked about it last night on Fourth and Fun. I can't believe people bet on the Little League World. It's so ridiculous. Like
12-year-olds, man.
It's like, come on. I would never think for that, but you never know. But I think the Chinese Taipei, when they're actually going to disagree with you on the U.S. matchup, I love what Connecticut's doing. Connecticut always seems to put up those crooked innings. They've got this weird base running thing that they've done that's kind of caused a little bit of controversy throughout this week, especially against South Dakota. But Connecticut, what's been great about this championship, the pitching has been just incredible. I was watching the other day, Nevada was playing South Carolina, and the South Carolina pitcher had a no-hitter after 6, had 12 strikeouts. And the Nevada pitcher, I think, didn't give up like 4 hits. He had 12 strikeouts. Like the fact that these kids are so good pitching at this age is absolutely incredible that you feel like if teams get 1 run, they're going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to see it. The best thing about the Little League World Series is the reactions of the kids on both sides, to be honest. Like just the elation of winning, and then you just see the raw emotion when you know your season's over. And it reminds you why you love sports. So it's one of those things I will definitely be tuning in this weekend just to see what happens. Like I said, I would love to see it be Aruba versus Las Vegas, but if it doesn't happen, you know, whoever wins, those kids are just going to be living on cloud 9 and you can't beat it. So excited for that. I'm going to touch quickly on the NWSL as we round down on some of these sports here. We got a couple matchups this weekend that are very interesting on the table. So on Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific on ION, you have Portland versus Kansas City. That is 5 versus 1 on the table. So 2 very good teams. And we'll see what happens there. But Kansas City is obviously going to be a favorite as they're the top team in the NWSL. And then you have San Diego versus Racing Louisville, which is 2 versus 7. So the top two teams are playing some good competitors, and so we'll see what happens this weekend. Any thoughts on the NWSL?
The Kansas City Portland matchup is intriguing because I wonder when you look at KC, they got an 11-point lead in the standings. So how much are they really going to have that motivation? You might get them on an off day where there's not much fighting for at this point. I know they've been on an insane run, 13 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses this year. But Portland's very tough at home. They've got the second best home record in the league. They've always been one of those teams tough to play against on the road. They're 5th right now on the table, as you mentioned. I think both these teams have some good firepower, so this should be a fun game. I think locally for me, the one I'm intrigued about is Saturday, 7:30 Eastern, Gotham against Utah. Gotham had a tough loss to Houston on Sunday. They had the lightning delay, which delayed the match a couple hours, and they lose late when they had to lead throughout. Right now, Gotham is in that 8th spot, tied with the North Carolina Courage and Angel City. They desperately got to win some games with the Golden Boot leader, Esther Gonzalez. They beat Utah earlier this year on the road 3-0. They've beat them 7-1 the last 2 games. So Gotham needs to make a push. They need to make it now. So that should be fun. Your other national matchup this week, 4 o'clock on CBS tomorrow, 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific, Bay FC against the Washington Spirit. Bay FC is 12th in the table, but Washington is tied for 3rd and only 1 point behind San Diego to getting into 2nd. So big one for Trinity Rodman's squad.
Yeah, and they're coming down towards their playoffs as well. A lot of sports coming down towards the playoffs, and that's exciting. So more to come on that as we go through the next few weeks. All right, well, let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll talk some golf and we'll talk some tennis and some auto racing to wrap up the day. Lots of sports coming down the pipe, so we'll talk more about it right after this break from our sponsor.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at iSports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we're back. And for everybody, just a reminder, whether you're watching live or you're watching us on replay, make sure you hit that like button. And if you aren't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can get all of our great content. We have podcasts coming through almost every single day. And we got 3 and Out coming tomorrow. So make sure that you're following all of our great content here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. All right, so we're going to move to tennis, our last major of the year. The U.S. Open begins Sunday, and I'll just run down really quickly who the top 2 seeds are and maybe the top Americans. So no surprise, the top 2 men, Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. That's pretty much not surprising. Everyone knows they're the 2 best players in tennis right now. And the top American actually is ranked 4th. He's pretty high, Taylor Fritz. So we have an opportunity with an American to have a high seed and really see what he can do with that. On the women's side, you have Aryna Sabalenka and Iga Swiatek are the top 2 seeds, and Coco Gauff's right behind them as the top American as the 3 seed. So again, America has an opportunity here to step up and get a player or 2 in that final. And I'm going to run through my predictions for the semifinals and who's going to get to the finals and then who's going to win. So we'll start with the men. And in the top half of the bracket, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go chalk here, and I'm going to say Yannick Sinner, that he makes it to the semifinals. I know that he was ill in the final a couple weeks ago and didn't get to finish. I'm assuming at this point that that's behind him and that he's fully healthy, and assuming he is, to me, he really is just the best player in the world, and it's not terribly close. Carlos Alcaraz can play with him, but I think when Yannick Sinner plays his best tennis, he is the best player in the world. And I'm actually going to go with Alexander Zverev to meet him in the semifinal. And just because he seems to always step up in the big tournaments, doesn't always play as well in the smaller tournaments, but he seems to always step up in the majors. And I just have a feeling he's going to play really well and get all the way to the semis here. And I'm going to pick Sinner to beat him and get to the final. In the bottom half of the bracket, I'm going to have Taylor Fritz making it to the semis along with Carlos Alcaraz. This is chalk here in the sense that they're both in top 4 seeds. But I do believe, as I said on the pod last night on Fourth and Fun, there is a tangible elevation of American play at the U.S. Open that if this tournament were being held anywhere else in the world, I probably wouldn't have picked Taylor Fritz to make the semifinals. But there's something about playing in America that seems to bring out the best in the Americans. And I really do believe that Taylor Fritz is poised to do well. And this is where I'm going to go a little bit off chalk here. And I'm going to say that he's going to beat Carlos Alcaraz. And he's going to make it to the final, which would make for an excellent final between Taylor Fritz and Yannick Sinner. I'm not prepared to pick Sinner to lose to Taylor Fritz, though. I don't think Taylor Fritz will have enough in the tank after beating Carlos Alcaraz to also beat Sinner. So I am going to pick Sinner to win the U.S. Open, but I think it's going to be a great final, and the crowd will be into it because an American will be there, and I can't wait to see that if that happens. So your thoughts on the men's side?
So I think people have to sit back and realize this. If Yannick Sinner wins this U.S. Open, he would have won 3 of the 4 majors this year. And the only reason he didn't win the Grand Slam is that he lost the 2-1 lead to Alcaraz at the French Open. That's pretty remarkable, the run he's on, especially considering he had that suspension earlier this year. Now you can look at that and say, hey, the guy had a suspension. Now he's still dominating. Who knows? But at the same time, like you said, you hope that the illness is behind him. The Monday final at Cincinnati was kind of reason maybe why we shouldn't have Monday finals, but that's besides the point. I like Sinner, like you said, on that side. I'm going to disagree on Zverev. I feel like every time we talk about Zverev finding a point where he's going to break through, he never does at majors. He's good just enough to get to a certain point. So I'm actually going to take De Minaur on that side. I think he's a sneaky hardcourt player. He's been getting better at the U.S. Open each of the last 3 years. He made the quarters last year. I think he can make a run in Australia at the U.S. Open. Usually that crowd comes in, so De Minaur would probably be the crowd favorite in that match against Zverev. I don't think Fritz would be kind of an upset because he would play Djokovic. And that to me is I want to see that match because I want to see the crowd get on Novak and how Novak would respond to being the villain in that kind of matchup. Or would he be the villain at all? Would Fritz be the villain? Because we don't know how many more slams Novak has left. So that to me is the fun one. I feel so bad for Ben Shelton because the draw screwed him again and he has to face Alcaraz. I was so set to picking Ben Shelton to win the U.S. Open, and just he's got the Roddick Federer vibe where every time Shelton runs up against Alcaraz, he doesn't just lose, he gets boat raced. And I think that will happen again. I'm going to go, though, with Carlos Alcaraz to win the U.S. Open. And I think it's just because I love that guy's style so much. I was a huge Nadal fan. He just reminds me of Nadal, fighting for every point. He's not always the most consistent. Like he'll kind of take a little bit of a lull in a match and let an opponent back in. But when he needs to pick that second, third motor up, he usually finds it. So I think it'll be another classic final. It's going to be Sinner versus Alcaraz. I know we're trying to find different ones. I will say a sleeper to me, and this could go one of two ways. I think the sleeper is Francis Tiafoe. I think he's a guy as the 17 seed. Either he's going to make a big run or he's going to flame out early. So if you're looking at Tiafoe on that side of the draw, it's either going to be early round upset or he makes a second week. Remember, this is the guy that made second week at the U.S. Open in the past. He's made deep runs. And this is the guy the crowd loves, Francis. So keep an eye. It's either going to be round 1, round 2 upset or quarters or semis for this guy.
Yeah, I laughed because that is Francis Tiafoe's entire career, right? It's either a spectacular flame out early or he can really threaten you down the stretch. So yeah, I'm fascinated to see how he plays it. And I will somewhat agree with your take on Djokovic. He's been my favorite tennis player since Federer kind of faded down the stretch. I actually played tennis in college and I love the sport. But Federer had the most beautiful game ever that I've ever seen, but Djokovic is right there with him. So I've always loved his game. He's not 100%. And as someone who does run distances, I know when you get to that older age, those injuries don't go away as quickly as they used to. And I just can't pick him to go far in this tournament when he's struggled so much to stay at the top of his fitness in the last few tournaments. So I would love to see it. Trust me, as a Djokovic fan, to see him go all the way. I know he's right up there with top number of majors ever, but it's just not something I can see. I can predict at this point. On the women's side, I'm going to say on the top half that you get chalk at the top, which Aryna Sabalenka, to me, she's playing amazing tennis. And, as long as she doesn't get in her head, which is always kind of her problem, she gets a little bit overly emotional. If she plays her best tennis, I don't know right now that anybody can stay with her power. But on the bottom half of the top, I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit and say the 9 seed Elena Rybakina will make the semis. And I like her game. She seems to do well in the majors. And, I just think that women always have somebody that kind of you're not expecting come out and play really, really well. So I'm just going to take a flyer on Elena Rybakina. I don't think she'll beat Sabalenka in the semis. I do think Sabalenka will make the final, but it'll be a fun story to see a little bit lower seed coming in on the top half. And on the bottom, again, this is the American effect for me. I'm rooting hard for Coco Gauff. And I think that she's got the game. She's played well in the U.S. Open in the past. And I think Coco Gauff will take on Iga Swiatek. Iga looks so dominant in Wimbledon that it's hard not to pick her. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to say Coco Gauff finds a way to beat Iga Swiatek. And I don't know that I feel comfortable with that pick, but it's what I'm going with. So you got a Coco Gauff, Aryna Sabalenka final. And just like in the men's side, I'm just not able to pull the trigger on winning the championship as much as I would be rooting for it. In my mind, Aryna Sabalenka is going to win the championship.
So on the women's side, for me, I like Sabalenka, but my concern this year is she seems to get to the final and nothing happens, or she hasn't won a slam yet this year. And I think that's a lot of pressure to go potentially over as the number 1 player in the world. She's won before, so she's the defending champion. But I think her form could be a little bit better coming in. To me, the favorite for me is Swiatek. I mean, she is playing extremely well. She got to the finals at the mixed doubles earlier this week. And you look at Iga, the way she's performing, her draw is very favorable to her. The toughest player she's going to play before the semis would be Anisimova, who she double bageled at Wimbledon. And I think right now she's in the right frame. I'm concerned about Coco. She has not played well this summer. She just got rid of a couple of her coaches right before this slam. I don't know if she's really the top American to me that I would pick to go forward. She had the loss to Mboko out in Canada. I don't really know where her game is right now to really be competent to her. I actually would pick another American on that side, and Osaka is on that side too. I like Maddie Keys. Maddie Keys to me is one where every time Madison Keys is favored, she loses early, but when she kind of comes under the radar, she plays some of her best tennis. And I don't think she's in the spotlight with Coco. Jessie Pegula needs a big event here because she's been pretty average this year, and she's got points to defend. So I think that's going to be fun. But I like Maddie Keys on that side. To me, I'm going to go with Iga, though, to win this slam. I know hard courts aren't exactly her strength as opposed to clay, I just think right now, if I had to pick between her and Sabalenka in a final, I would tend to go Iga. So I think the pride of Poland gets it done at the U.S. Open.
And that you can't argue with that pick, really. I mean, like I said, my Coco Golf pick was the heart pick for me. So, if I picked with my head, it may go differently, but we'll definitely see what happens. Iga's playing an amazing brand of tennis right now. It almost looked, a double bagel in Wimbledon final is something that I've never seen before. So, I mean, yeah, she's definitely the favorite for sure. All right. Let's move on to golf. This is the last, outside of the Ryder Cup, but for the regular PGA Tour schedule, this is the last event of the season. We have the Tour Championship. The top 30 players that made it through the FedEx standings, through the playoffs, have come to this event. We have gotten through the second round. And right now, Tommy Fleetwood and Russell Henley are tied at 13 under par, followed by Cam Young and Robert McIntyre at 11 and 10, respectively. Scotty Scheffler is 5 back at -8. And this raises kind of an interesting point with golf. For the last several years, when you made it to the Tour Championship, they started you preset at a number based on your ranking in the FedEx, which gave you advantages. If, let's say, you're Scotty Scheffler, you would maybe start at -10. I don't remember the exact way that they would do it, but you'd get this advantage heading into the tournament, and then it was just whoever wins. And this year they did away with that, and it's just you're in the tournament, whoever wins. So I'm curious, Ricky, what you think of that rule change. Do you think it's fair to just say winner takes all, or is it more fair to give a person that's had consistent play throughout the season an advantage in this last tournament?
To me, it's tough because, I mean, to me, watching this, you're not even seeing like what I watched a little bit today. You don't see like the projected who's going to win, like if they finish in this spot. And I think to me, I noticed this week that some golfers could win the FedEx Cup without winning the Tour Championship or winning any tournaments, which would be really a surprise for that to happen. You kind of saw that with Liv. John Rahm won Liv, and he didn't win a single event all year. So I guess that's kind of a flaw in the system, that like Scotty could be number one and potentially not win the FedEx Cup. We've seen that happen before. It's not big of a surprise. I like the idea, though, of having a guy, if you're number one at the last event, you should start with the lead and have other people catch it. It'd be a lot of fun. I do like that they pair, though, based on the FedEx Cup pairings to start round one. So you had Scotty with Rory yesterday, which was kind of good as the last pairing of the day. They moved up the tee times earlier today because it was rain out in Atlanta, and there was a lot of good scores. Cameron Young shot a 62 to get back in the mix at 11 under. I really like his game right now coming off of Wyndham. Tommy Fleetwood, can he actually pull off a win? Again, we're constantly talking Tommy Fleetwood. Russell Henley, to me, would be the dark horse here. I know it's weird to say dark horse being tied for the lead. He shot a 61 yesterday, and before today, he had 18 under on the last 36 holes that he played at the Tour Championship. So this is a course he clearly likes. And he held his own with Scotty today, considering he shot 3 shots better than Scheffler. So that's pretty impressive. He chipped in from the bunker at 1 to get his day started. It was pretty solid. Scotty, I think he can still pull off one more run. The guy to watch for me is Patrick Cantlay. Patrick Cantlay got a 64 today. He's 66 today, coming off a 64 Thursday. He's 10 under. Patrick Cantlay needs a big week. Now, why does he need a big week? Not necessarily for the FedEx Cup. He's got to make a push to Keegan Bradley to get on that Ryder Cup team, because that U.S. team right now has a lot of inexperienced dudes on it because of how well they've played. They need Cantlay to go without the hat and to be that leader and to be that guy on the course that's not afraid to go against Rory or not afraid to go against Rahm or not afraid to go against these top guys. I think if he can win or get in that top 2 or top 3, I know his year hasn't been great, but the U.S. Ryder Cup team needs Patrick Cantlay on it because they've got the 6. We're going to assume Keegan picks himself because I don't know how he wouldn't pick himself as the playing captain. So 5 spots left. Can Cantlay get himself in one of those 5? He's going to have to make an audition for Bradley this weekend in Atlanta.
Absolutely. A player that I'm keeping my eye on outside of Scheffler is McIntyre. He's played really, really well. He's been almost winning every single event that he's played the last, including the British Open. He's been really playing well this summer, and I'm curious to see if he can close the deal. He hasn't been able to do it yet, but he's sitting at just right there with Patrick Cantlay at -10, shot 64, 66, same scores as Patrick as well. I'm curious to see if he can make some hay this weekend. Also, fun fact, interesting thing, you don't ever see this in golf. Of course, the small field kind of helps with that. And to your point about the course being pretty receptive, every single player in the field right now is under par. I don't think I've ever seen that after 2 rounds. So it'll be interesting to see if that can continue for the rest of the tournament. And while we can stay in golf here and really quick hit on the Live Tour in Michigan, we have the team championships in Michigan today. It's the last of those events before the playoffs get going. They started today. I didn't have a chance to check the scores and see how they were doing, but it is match play format. So they play 2 singles and then a foursome, and top seed gets to pick who they play in the semifinals. So we'll see what happens out there in Michigan.
So I've got those for you, actually.
Okay, great.
So we have the semifinals. It will be Legion 9 against the High Flyers. That's John Rahm's team against Phil Mickelson's team. Crushers against the Smash. Now Bryson against Koepka's team, but Bryson isn't going to get to face Brooks Koepka. He picked Lahiri to face him. I don't know. I wish Bryson had just once said, "I'm going to go against Brooks. Give the people what they want, and let's have some fun." I don't get that, but it'll be Lahiri. It's 2 singles, 1 foursome. It's Lahiri against Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau against Taylor Gooch, and then Paul Casey and Charles Howell against Graham McDowell and Jason Kokrak. Your first semifinal is John Rahm against Phil Mickelson. That's a heck of a lot of fun. Hopefully Phil can actually hold up. Rahm did lose his singles match today to Morank, but Taro Hatton won in the extra hole against Richard Bland to get his team through. Hatton will place Cameron Tringali, who's never lost a team match play at Live over the last couple of years. So Tringali's that good match play player, and then it's Surratt McKibben against Brendan Steele and Ogletree in that one. So that's your semis tomorrow. Be kind of cool to see Rahm against Koepka in a rematch of the Masters from a year ago. But I kind of wish, to your point, that we had like a bye and like the top 16 in Tour Championship just played match play.
Oh, that'd be great.
We need match play back on the PGA Tour. I missed that. I don't know why they got rid of that event.
So like the first play is a 16, and just like a bracket. That would be a lot of fun, and it would be a cool event. Or you could do it over 5 or 6 days instead of 4. So that would be a lot of fun. And golf has shown a propensity to try to continue to tweak this system with the Tour Championship. Clearly, they're not comfortable with anything that they've done. That might be a way to go, because quite honestly, match play is better TV. And it would just be a lot of fun to see guys going up against each other. So I love that idea. You should get that over to the commissioner. All right, we're going to wrap it up here with some quick notes on auto racing before we get out of here. In NASCAR, we got the Daytona International Speedway this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on NBC. This is the last race before the playoffs. It's the Coke Zero Sugar 400. Got to have that highly specific name here. William Byron is in first place, followed by Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin. And in the playoff chase, you got Alex Bowman is currently the last out, and Chris Boucher is the first one out. So we'll see what happens over the weekend, and we'll see who makes the playoffs. And then in IndyCar, we have Milwaukee this week for 250 miles. It's Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on Fox. And, of course, Alex Palau has been dominant all year long, and that's no different here with Pato O'Ward is in second place. So any thoughts on NASCAR here? Or
I think for starting with NASCAR, obviously those last playoff spots are going to be a big thing. Who gets in, who doesn't get in. It's kind of the fun fact where you have a guy where you have Brad Keselowski and Chris Boucher trying to get in. What's going to be interesting is the matchup between Tyler Reddick and Alex Bowman. All Tyler Reddick has to do to get in over Alex Bowman is just finish higher than him. So if I'm interested to see if those cars are like with Reddick playing defense just to try to finish ahead of him to get in that lock in one of those playoff spots. I think it's 22 drivers still have a chance to get into the playoffs. So that's always fun. And to having a high quality event like Daytona on a Saturday night to wrap up your regular season is usually good theater. And then in IndyCar, while Alex Palou's already got the title with a couple events left, there's a really exciting race going on for Rookie of the Year between Lewis Foster and Robert Schwartzman. With 2 races left, those 2 drivers are separated by 6 points. It is the closest Rookie of the Year finish that IndyCar has had in a long time. So while the points lead is already done and Palou's having an insane season, but he's never won Milwaukee. So maybe he'll finally get a win because he's won everywhere else. But Foster versus Schwartzman for Rookie of the Year is kind of that underlying storyline to follow toward the end of the season.
Absolutely. So we'll check it out this weekend and see where it comes. Another sport coming down to the end of the season and really ramping up towards their playoffs. So that's our show today. Thank you so much, Ricky, for being here and talking about all of the sports that are coming up this weekend. I'm sure all of you watching this are probably going to be watching every single sport that we talked about today. You've got the NFL with their last week of preseason. Who's going to play their starters? Who's not going to play their starters? And what will the result of that be? College football kicks off. Week 0 starts in Ireland tomorrow morning. Can't wait to see some college football action that actually means something. And U.S. Open getting jumped up here. We've got golf with the Tour Championship. Just a lot of really good sports. Can't wait to see it all. Don't forget to tune in to our recap segment of the weekend here on Monday on IE Sports Radio. And for Ricky, I'm Josh Ritter. Thank you so much. And remember, IE Sports Radio is your direct feed for all that is sports.
So like Josh said, be sure to follow us on X, YouTube, all those things, TikTok, all those fun stuff going on. I think this is going to be a really good event. And as he said, next week we got college football going on as well. Texas, Ohio State. We're going to look ahead to that next week. Arch Manning against the Buckeyes' new quarterback. We have a lot of good matchups next week to look forward to. LSU, Clemson, Notre Dame, Miami. So we're going to have a lot of fun doing that. And before you know it, we'll have NFL to look forward to in a couple of weeks. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Dog days of summer. We're here the rest of the way with you, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Shout out to Josh, first time being in the pilot chair, doing some good things here. He'll be back in the pilot chair next week, so you can hear him solo on the network on the first Friday of September. And again, I will be heading out with Adam Harnick a week from Monday, Labor Day. Look at the Belichick versus TCU. That should be a lot of fun right before we kicks off. From all of us at IE Sports Radio, for Josh, for Larry, and for all of our IE Sports Radio team, I'm Ricky K. Say have a great rest of the weekend. See you back here